We are back. Thank you so much for staying with us. And in case you're just joining us, welcome to Kenya's Gold, where the focus of the show today is on animal farming. Now, in this particular Gold conversation, we do want to further the talk on animal health, which entails vaccination and routine checks. And to shed more light on that, we are joined by Dr. Alex Sabuni, who is the Managing Director at Kevivapi. And we also do have Dr. Kelvin Osore, who is the National Chairman at Kenya Veterinary Association. Thank you so very much for making time to be with us today. And I'll start with you, Dr. Kelvin. Maybe you can shed more light on the work that is done under Kenya Veterinary Association, and also how do you ensure a harmonious relationship with other bodies such as Kevivapi to make sure that the interests of our farmers are put first?
Thank you, Ngina, and thank you for having us here today. I'll just start by actually saying Dr. Sabuni here is one of our foremost members. So the Kenya Veterinary Association brings together veterinary surgeons in the country. So we have about 3,000 veterinary surgeons in the country. Our membership is about 2,500 and thereabouts. The association ensures that in addition to member welfare, we are advancing science. So we advance science, we ensure that public health is assured. We make sure that our members fall in line. So to your question on how to ensure that we protect farmers, KVA ensures that all the members that we have on our books are playing by the rules. They're doing things that can advance science, can help society, and they're also not, defrauding farmers out there in the field. But for our members like Dr. Sabuni, who are at Kevivapi and the other bodies, we also, whenever there are concerns in the field, KVA acts as a civil society organization for the society. So we'll bring those concerns to them to address them.
Right. Yeah. Thank you so much for that. Now, last week, Dr. Alex, you assured us that the two vaccines that we're paying attention to in the government mass vaccination plan, being treating foot and mouth and also PPR, those vaccines are being manufactured right here at Kevivapi. One of the questions that came out, and we will be sampling more questions from our audience later on in the show, is how are we mapping out the regions to start and where next? How are we administering it and what is the layout like?
Thank you, Ngina. What actually is happening is that the National Director for Veterinary Services has a team, a dedicated team from the disease control, which is led by Dr. Njogu, that is working on the blueprint on now how to move, now that we have launched in a number of counties. We have launched in Laikipia, we have launched in Garissa, in Wajir, in West Pokot. Last year we launched in also a number of counties, that are Kanithi, in Embu, and also in Kitui County. So they are giving us direction. And on our part now, as Kevivapi, we are working together to make sure that as they are moving, we are also making available the vaccine that they require. Would you know that direction is being given on what basis? What factors are they looking at so that they can tell you tuanzie Laikipia, tuende Kitui sasa? What are the factors that they are ticking on their boxes first? Broadly, I'm looking at the two vaccines of interest here. And this is a foot and mouth disease vaccine and PPR vaccine. So foot and mouth disease vaccine is for cattle. And the major area of focus as they are starting is the dairy zones. Okay. So they're looking at dairy zones because they're the high risk. They are taking an approach that is called a risk-based vaccination strategy. And for PPR, because this is a disease of sheep and goats, and the large population of sheep and goats is found in the arsal areas. And that is why the launch in Laikipia, in Wajir, in Garissa, these are the areas that will be consuming large quantities of PPR vaccine. Right. And that is why the strategy of launch has started from those sides. Right. So let's get into the first question from a viewer, and we have Oscar Omondi, who says, I sell locally. So hiyo story ya vaccination eti ndo nipate soko ugaibuni does not fly. And it will surprise you, by the way, that Somalia, which enjoys over 65% of livestock export to the
East and Europe does not vaccinate its animals. It can't even afford the exercise in the first place. That is the first question that we have from Oscar Omonje. And I'd like to come to you, Dr. Kevin. A lot of our farmers wanasema hivyo. Mnatuambia to vaccinate ndo tuende soko, tupate soko in the international markets. Me, I'm servicing the local market, so why should I go for this vaccine? And also just help us understand if the point on Somalia is actually a fact or a myth.
Thank you, Ngina. We will say the government, when making this announcement, were looking at the macroeconomics. They were looking at the livestock subsector as a major contributor to the national GDP. And that is why their insistence or focus was on the export market. But when you look at vaccination exercises generally, they are supposed to help increase productivity. So if you want your cow to produce more milk or better meat, you are going to have to control diseases. And the easiest, most affordable way to control diseases is through vaccinations. So yes, the clarion call should have been vaccinate to increase productivity. Right. That is a communication issue from the government, and I wouldn't want to go into that.
Right. So I feel like that also brings the point, ukiangalia even how much we're exporting for something like milk. Utapata locally, we even have a deficit of 3 billion liters annually. So by the time you're telling a farmer so that you can export it, you're exporting very little, the messaging becomes a bit,
the farmer finds it hard to believe that your true intentions, what your true intentions are. But then again, you can't really fault the government, because the government, I think, looked at the bigger picture, that the livestock subsector is largely an untapped market. We have markets in Europe and the Middle East that we cannot satisfy because of the fact that our productivity is low, but also our disease control measures are not necessarily the best.
Right.
So yeah, the bigger picture is still there, but the farmer on the ground needs to understand that for them to get more milk, more meat, they need to vaccinate their animals.
All right, thank you so much for that. We're going to be moving to the next question from our viewer. We have one from William Wendell, who says, I believe this is directed to Alex from the conversation we did have last week. He says, Alex said he has enterotoxemia vaccine, a main shot killer. Yesterday, I sent someone to buy and it was not in stock. So, Dr. Alex, pengine utuambie, are we sometimes facing a shortage in vaccine? Mkulima hapa ametumana lakini hajapata. What is the way forward?
Thank you, Ngina. I'd want to start by saying Kevevapi is manufacturing 13 vaccines. And of these 13 vaccines, we have also other vaccines that are very important. You remember me mentioning last, like brucellosis, enterotoxemia, like blackwater anthrax, which we as Kevevapi are not currently manufacturing, but we normally source for our customers when they request. But these are vaccines that are very much available on the market, and the private sector has played a major role. If I pick an example of that enterotoxemia vaccine, without promoting companies, I would say already we have 3 suppliers, and the quantities are more than enough. How I wish that I could help them connect to these suppliers, because we are working together with the private sector, and to make available the vaccine when it is required.
Right.
So I want to assure that we as Kevevapi may not have it because of supply chain issues, but it is available in the market.
Right.
Yes.
So if they can link up with you probably later in the show through the socials and different other channels, you can direct them to where they can get these vaccines that we are not manufacturing at Kevevapi.
Yes.
Great, thank you so much for that. I'll come to you, Dr. Kelvin, before we move to the next question from our audience. Now, one of the things that the leadership of KVA was pushing for was that this mass vaccination plan is, pushed forward so that there's enough time for sensitization, creation of awareness to our farmers, and also more professionals involvement. Now that that request was not fully honored, the exercise has kicked off. I want to know more of your thoughts, where you stand as KVA, and what you think could be the potential challenges that could arise since we did not put a step back to the process.
Thanks, Ngina. To start off, it's simple. For any major vaccination exercise to be successful, you need at least 80% vaccine coverage. So that means that whatever herd size we have in Kenya, we need at least 80% of it to be covered, vaccinated, for that vaccination exercise to be successful. From the Kenya Veterinary Association, our thinking, and it still remains, was that the government put the cart before the horse. First of all, the government should have done proper civic education. There's a lot of misinformation and vaccine myths that fly around X and other social media channels that the government did not anticipate. So if Kenyans have their own doubts about this vaccination exercise, the government should have, first of all, carried out civic education to ensure that the whole public is on board, because we need public trust to ensure that this campaign succeeds. But additionally, the government should have capacity build their own bodies. Now look at Kevevapi, for example. I'm sure Kevevapi has gaps that need to be filled before they can be able to consistently produce that number of vaccines. So we wanted the government to put in resources, capacity build Kevevapi and the DVS and the county veterinary departments to ensure they are ready for this exercise. Right. So make sure the public is on board, but also ensure that you have the capacity to sustain that exercise for long. And as I am speaking, Ngina, you will, if you go out in the field, you realize that the launches are happening, but after the launch, the exercise stalls because of a lack of funds. Right. And I will challenge, your reporters to actually go to the field, to Laikipia, to Wajir, and Kitui. You realize the exercise stalled because there were no funds. Right. So we didn't oppose vaccinations, but we wanted the government to ensure they have done proper implementation planning. Right. Yes. Dr. Alex is here, and you have been mentioned in that comment, and we are wondering, are you ready? Is Kevevapi ready for this exercise? If it's true we are stalling, what is the way forward? Yes, I want to say Kevevapi is ready. The president made this pronouncement on 1st of June in 2024, while in Bungoma. And from there, we have been working day in, day out. And remember, when I was here last time, I said we have actually doubled our production capacity. We even have bought infrastructure. In December, we were installing infrastructure to be able to expand our capacity. And this is a continuing exercise. And I'm very sure that as the vaccination goes on, we are also identifying the gaps that are arising, and we are strengthening where we need to strengthen. Right. So this is a continual process. Right. Yes. And also thank you, Calvin, for bringing that up, because with the conspiracy stories, there was so much. Mnambua, your cow will not be able to belch, it will not be able to fart. And this brought a lot of concerns to our farmers. What do you have to say about those stories? Can we confirm anything or, put our farmers at ease? What are your thoughts? Because it was a big conversation on this belching and farting issue. My thoughts, Ngina, are that public health and even disease control rely a lot heavily on public trust. Unfortunately, of late, this is not just a trend in Kenya, but even in the US, you realize there was a lot of COVID vaccine misinformation. The era of, the rise of right-wing politics and social media has meant that there's a lot of vaccine misinformation that flies out there. And anything associated with globalism and Bill Gates and so on draws a lot of instant, disinformation. Right. The government, unfortunately, announced this exercise at the same time that they were giving the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation special privileges and immunities. And then an old video emerged circulating, talking about control of methane gas emissions. And that spurred a lot of misinformation, which for us, from where we stand as the Kenya Veterinary Association, are neither here or there. We have been vaccinating our cows for long. So we do not think that the government has just woken up today and decided they are going to prevent cows from belching and so on. But then again, secondly, that technology that they are talking about is not necessarily ready for use at the moment. This is a technology that is still at the proof of concept stage. So we don't believe those myths and the conspiracy theories are true. But the government missed a bit on ensuring the public is better informed on its intention. The messaging needed to be done very well. And probably the politicians also took advantage of it. Yes. Yeah. Okay, thank you so much for that. We're going to move to the next question from our audience. We have one from Joseph Joiro, who says, would be good to know if the mass vaccination is a lifetime vaccine or to be administered on what frequency? Is it the usual 6 months or 1 year? I'll let Dr. Alex answer that question from Joseph of Joiro Farm. For foot and mouth disease vaccine, we normally advocate for repeat after 4 to 6 months. In intensive dairy farming, we advocate for 4 months. Right. But in pastoral areas, we advocate for 6 months. But for PPR vaccine,
in sheep and goats, it's a lifetime vaccine. So one shot protects the animal for life.
Right.
Yes.
So given that for the foot and mouth, depending on the region you're in, it has to be done at intervals, is the government doing this once, or they'll keep coming to do it? What's the plan?
Actually, Gina, when the Director of Veterinary Services has been engaging the public, he has clearly pronounced that this vaccination will continue for a period of beyond 3 years. And the idea here is to ensure that we have a population that is free from disease by vaccination.
Right.
So we want to stop circulation of the virus.
Right.
Yes.
Great. So we will be taking another question from our audience, but before we do that, there are certain regions, for example, Narok, some parts of Nakuru, whereby of late they have been dealing with the outbreak of lumpy skin. All right. And this has been causing, a lot of death in the animals. And of course, this is their livelihood. And then when you go to that person and now you're talking to them about foot and mouth, and this is someone whose cows at the moment, there's almost no hope because of lumpy skin disease, and there's almost no communication on that. I'm hoping we can see some images of the lumpy skin disease, some of the animals that have been affected by this disease in different parts. So Dr. Kevin, I'd like for you to talk to us about, are we also looking at different regions and what is prone in that area, so that mkulima asiseme mbona mkuleta vaccine ya hii lumpy skin, munaniambia hii foot and mouth, sijaona hii foot and mouth hapa kwa sasa. So it becomes a very difficult, convincing session. Yeah. What are your thoughts on the same?
Yeah, Angina, you're right, and the MD actually mentioned a risk-based approach. When you look at our initial statement as the Kenya Veterinary Association, that was one of our recommendations, because we said there are counties where FMD is a challenge, but those counties where LSD, lumpy skin disease, is their biggest challenge. And so we had recommended as KVA that the government considers a risk-based approach that targets regions based on which diseases are their biggest issue. And we don't know how far the government has gone with that, because we are still not so sure about the plans. But that needs to be automatic. If we are in an area that is not really, let's say, a high dairy producing region, they might not necessarily have an issue with FMD. Right. Or FMD might be one of their lowest priorities, but another disease might be their challenge, like Narok, let's say, now LSD. Yeah. So probably I will throw that to Dr. Sabuni to just explain whether this has been taken on board through the rollout. Please, kindly talk to us, Dr. Alex.
Thank you, Ngina, and our viewers this evening. I want to say the national government has prioritized two diseases, that is foot and mouth and PPR. But remember, the disease control aspect is a devolved function, and counties have also their priorities. So it is not that the country, the leadership is only focused on two diseases, because the other day we were in West Pokot. West Pokot, they're also doing contagious bovine pleuropneumonia, contagious caprine, because these are county priority diseases. Right. And these are directed and informed by the county leadership. Right. So this is ongoing. National, we are focusing on two, but at county, each county has its own.
Great. Yeah. Thank you so much for that. It's time for us to take another break, but best believe we do have a lot more feedback that is coming in, and we'll make sure that our experts, Dr. Alex Sabuni, who is the Managing Director, KVVAPI, and also Dr. Kelvin Osore, who is the National Chairman, Kenya Veterinary Association, will answer those questions when we come back from this short commercial break. Don't go anywhere. We're back. Thank you so much for staying with us. We do hope you're enjoying the program as much as we are enjoying being in your company. Now, very shortly, we will be continuing with our conversation on vaccination of animals. So please feel free to keep that feedback coming in across all our social media platforms. But before we get to that, as per the usual, we're here to give you tips as a farmer on what you need to do to make sure that you're growing in the agricultural space. So please, dear farmer, make sure that you are part part of a cooperative society. Remember, to form a cooperative society, you only need to be about 10 members and you're good to go. Some of the advantages and benefits that you will enjoy in your cooperative society include you do stand a higher chance of getting financial support from various financial institutions like the Cooperative Bank. You're also guaranteed to get professional agronomy services and also market and quality farm input. So please, dear farmer, usifanye vitu peke yako, be part of a cooperative society and also take advantage of the various credit solutions that Cooperative Bank is offering small-scale farmers, large-scale farmers, and farmers in cooperative societies as well. Now, for now, let us continue with our conversation with Dr. Kelvin Osore, who is the National Chairman, Kenya Veterinary Association. And we also do have Dr. Alex Sabuni, who is the MD at Kevevapi. Now, another question from our audience, we have Duncan Kiprui, who says the demand for vaccines is too high and most farmers opt for private vaccination since animal health professionals are few. What is Kevevapi KVA doing to create awareness on vaccines handling and usage, because we are forced to be part of it, and that's the reality. I'll come straight to you, Dr. Alex. Last week ulituambia wakulima wasijifanyie vaccination, lakini hapo wanakuambia the reality on the ground, you people are not enough. Which way forward? Please tell us.
Thank you for that good question. Now, last time I also mentioned that we have so many colleges which are training professionals, and we have quite a big number, a huge number of professionals who are now available. Probably also for professionals, some of them are focusing so much on urban areas and they're forgetting. It's like someone like me who has worked deep in the villages with the pastoral community. It is so rewarding. I would encourage them to become available to the farmers in the pastoral areas and also in the villages so that they can provide the service. But I want to assure that we have more than enough technical persons that are being trained every day.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for that. Moving on to the next question, we do have Justice Muthui, who says, can we release a vaccines manual to farmers to understand the types, timings, and where they're mainly applicable? Dr. Kelvin Osore, please help us with that.
Ngina, I think that probably is a question that can also be addressed by Kevevapi. But as KVA, we are actually in the process of developing industry manuals and guidelines. And that will be one of those that we develop in partnership with bodies such as Kevevapi and so on. But allow me, Ngina, to just go back to the question that the MD has responded to now. I want to disagree with him slightly. The number of veterinary surgeons, I'll just give you a figure. The number of veterinary surgeons in the country is lower than about 2,500, the whole country, 2,500. The number of veterinary paraprofessionals, registered ones, is about 7,000. Now look at the number of cows and the number of sheep and goats that these people target. And why do we have such low numbers in Kenya? This is a demotivated workforce. At the moment, the graduating class at the University of Nairobi, there are only two classes teaching a Bachelor of Veterinary Medicine in Kenya, Egerton and the University of Nairobi. Egerton's graduating class has 25 students. The University of Nairobi has 105 students. The market is huge, but we're not churning out enough numbers. And the reason is because we are not paying these people well. We are not paying them allowances. A veterinary surgeon, for example, earns 5,000 as a risk allowance. Working out there in the field, dealing with zoonotic diseases that can infect them, dealing with rabid dogs and so on, while a medical officer, on the other hand, is earning 30,000 shillings onwards. So people are not necessarily interested in pursuing this cause. The government has to incentivize people to do this, and the best way to incentivize people is to ensure the workforce is motivated.
Right.
Yeah.
And I feel like once our viewers hear such sentiments, this is Kevevapi, this is KVA, and they're not, singing from the same book, it builds up on the mistrust, Now they don't, when you come and tell them, vaccinate, and they're like, wenyewe hata hawaelewani, it becomes a problem to our farmers. Dr. Alex, is this something we can work on a serious note? Because if our housing finally is not okay, how do we expect to onboard the millions of farmers who are looking up to you and they're feeling already a disconnect within yourselves?
Actually, there's no disconnect, Ngina. There's no disconnect. Everybody has his or her own opinion, and we are accommodative. We accommodate because every time I've appeared before the media, I say that like KVA supports vaccination. I'm a member of KVA, my chair is here. KVA supports vaccination, and the issue is maybe apart from some slight issues that have been raised about enhancing capacity, but the general underlying the word KVA supports vaccination. And even on this issue of workforce, we are not differing on anything because we have different perspective of looking at it because KVA is a welfare body.
All right.
Now, I like how he has brought out clearly on the welfare part. For me, I'm protecting my my product so that they are not handled by non-professionals.
Right.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much for that, Dr. Alex. Because of time, we do have to wind up the show there, but this, of course, is an ongoing conversation. We'll definitely keep interacting with you across our social media platforms and make sure that any information is shared to our farmers in real time. Thank you so much, Dr. Kelvin Osore, for being here and sharing great insights, and of course, Dr. Alex Sabuni, Managing Director, KVVAPI. And before we wind up, of course, you have to give me the... I like the smiles on your faces. And the question you were asking is, I played hide and seek in hospital, but they kept finding me. Which room was I in? Please don't overthink. It's so simple. Nini madaktari manze. Dr. Alex?
Dr.
Ulikuwa unapatikana. Acha niwaambie hata na Kiswahili. Ulikuwa unapatikana. You know when you're playing hide and seek, the goal is usipatikane. So sasa unapatikana because of you are in which room, Dr. Kelvin?
I'm thinking the ICU.
Oh my God!
Do I have a gift?
Dr. Kelvin?
Surgical table.
Surgical table. You are so right. I see.
Where's the gift pack? Where's the gift pack?
Yeah, the answer is ICU.
Okay.
Good job, Dr. Kelvin. And with that, we have come to the end of the show. Very big thanks to our farmer from Riru today, and of course, our guests. Thank you, Dr. Kelvin, Dr. Alex, and also our viewers for joining with us from the beginning to the very end. We do hope you've learned a thing or two about vaccination, and we'll make sure that this information comes to you at all times in real time. Thank you so much for watching. See you tomorrow with a lot more when it comes to technology in agriculture. My name is Violetta Ngina. Goodbye.